Happy Wednesday. The word for you today, Raising Great Kids in a Troubled World, Part 3. Proverbs 23, verses 13 and 14 says, "Do not withhold discipline from a child. If you punish him with the rod, he will not die. Punish him with the rod and save his soul from death." This is not a command to beat a child, okay? Some people take it as that. It's not. How are we to discipline a child? Well, this is a question parents must deal with, and often they have very conflicting ideas. So, what's the right answer on how to discipline a child? Spank or not spank? What do you do? Well, let's take a look at some things. First of all, children are born with a sin nature. Now, I know some people say that little precious Sally and Jimmy are just so beautiful, and they're just so perfect and everything. Yeah, but you put a bunch of 2-year-olds in a room with one toy, see what happens. It's not going to be pretty. That sin nature will come to the forefront very quickly and graphically. Children are born with the sin nature, so that's the first thing we have to understand. And the other thing is when a child intentionally rebels against a parent, there has to be consequences. Otherwise, the child's going to continue to live that way through their life. And there's nothing more tragic than seeing an adult, someone who's old enough to know better, but lives as if there are no consequences to the actions that they do. But the key there is intentional. It's not if the child makes a mistake, an accident, accidentally bumps a glass over on the table. That's an accident. It's the intentional. You told the child not to knock the glass over, be careful. Well, they climb up on the table, and while they're up on the table, they knock the glass over. That's intentional. Okay, they're not supposed to be on the table. So the key word there is intentional when it comes to discipline. The third thing, say the child intentionally rebels against the parent. You tell the child, do not go into that room. They look at you, they walk over, right to the edge, they look at you, and then they just take a step in and they go in just looking at you, just daring you to do something. Well, should the child be spanked, timeout, or some other form of discipline? Well, it depends on the child. We need to remember that what we're after is what is best for the child to help them to learn and to grow into mature adults. Some children need corporal punishment. Some need to be spanked. Some need to experience a little pain to realize, I don't want to do this again. Shouldn't be done when the parent's angry. It's to be done in a controlled way. And if it's done in a controlled way, it probably hurts us as much or more than it does them because we don't like doing it, but we know we're doing it for their best. Now, some children aren't going to respond well to that, to a corporal punishment, to a spanking. They need other. You could spank them all day long and it wouldn't make one bit of difference. They'll just glare at you. That does no good. Remember, what we're after is a change in behavior. There's something else that will speak to that child. I knew a child one time who hated to be left alone. Now, you could spank that child all day long. It's not going to do anything. You just glare at you and you'd say, is that all you got? But if you leave them in a room by themselves, that they didn't want that. That they would straighten up, they would do anything to avoid that. So you have to find what it is that speaks to that child, but there has to be something to teach them that their behavior is not acceptable. Because if they don't learn it as a child and they become an adult, that's part of the problems we have in our world today. And then notice that last, verse 14 really in Proverbs 23, it says, punish him with the rod and save his soul from death. And before that it says, if you punish him with the rod, he won't die. This isn't about beating a child. It's about disciplining him. And what he's saying is it's to withhold discipline from an intentionally rebellious child is actually very unloving. It's very unloving because you're just setting them up for a life of failure. It's better for a child to experience discipline now from a loving parent than from a very cruel world later. There was a young man that, growing up, he was often told to clean his room. He'd always agree to do it, but very seldom did he ever follow through. After high school, he joined the Marine Corps. He came home for leave after basic training. His father asked him what he had learned in the service. He said, "Dad, I learned what now means." Some of our children need to know what now means. Because if they don't learn it now, they probably will never learn it. And life's going to be very, very hard. Raising kids in a troubled world, there has to be discipline. There has to be discipline. Have a good day.